And Jo joins us now. And I love that clip because it epitomises for me what's really good about the later of your books. I mean, we've just left this valley of pain and distress, which is bringing up adolescence. You're about to enter it.
Yeah.
No,
Something to look forward to then.
It's just as bad as you think it's going to be, I can tell you. But that's what's lovely about the sequence of books is that you see Harry turning into a grumpy adolescent and all the others around him going through those adolescent pains. You draw that very accurately, and you don't have adolescent kids yourself. I mean, is that just based on friends and conversations with friends who've got them?
Well, I taught teenagers for a while. They were my favourite age group to teach, in fact.
Yeah.
So I think I drew on a bit of that, and I drew on memories of how grumpy we all were when we were teenagers. We
Absolutely.
weren't my sister's here to watch this, and she was very grumpy, so I drew a lot on her.
Is she older than you or younger?
Yeah, she's younger, 2 years younger than me.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I know what I want to end at to happen at the end of the whole Harry Potter thing. I want Harry to marry Ginny, and I want Ginny Weasley, and I want Ron to marry Hermione, and all that. No, I don't. Yes, I do. I want Ron to marry Hermione. That's right. And I will be so upset if it doesn't happen. But of course, the last one at the moment is at the moment residing in your safe. Yeah.
The final chapter is hidden away, although it's now changed very slightly.
Is it?
Yeah, one character got a reprieve.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was
But I have to say, 2 die that I didn't intend to die. So
too much loved ones.
Well, you know, a price has to be paid. We are dealing with pure evil, so they don't target the extras, do they? They go for the main characters, or I do.
We don't care about the extras. You told your husband, obviously, you confided in him all things, and you told him...
Well, not everything.
Well,
that
no,
would be
does?
reckless.
Let's be honest,
yes.
that would be stupid. Yeah, come on, I'll take that back. No, but you did tell him which ones were for the chop, and apparently he shuddered and said, "Oh no, oh, not that one."
He did on one of them, yeah.
Didn't he?
Yeah.
Listen, all the papers who've been promoting this interview today clearly want us to ask you, do you kill off Harry Potter? Which is a ridiculous question, because are you likely to say yes or no? I mean, obviously not. You couldn't possibly answer that. But have you ever been tempted to do him a little more harm than he's suffered? I mean, in the same way...
He's been through it up! He's been through the mill!
Well, because
every year of his adolescence and childhood, he saved the wizarding world. And then no one believes him.
Exactly.
He spends his entire life saving the world, and then next term he's just back at school being bullied.
Absolutely. And there's this great Harry Potter who's just sort of saved your entire school and all your skins.
And everyone just thinks he's a bit annoying.
I was dodging around the death word, because I know you can't answer that question, and I'm not asking that. But you know how Conan Doyle just got sick up to there with Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah.
So he pushed him off the cliff and looking back falls. Have you ever... I'm not asking if you've done that, obviously, but have you been tempted to bump him off? Because he's become such a huge thing in your life.
I've never been tempted to kill him off before the end of book 7, because I always planned 7 books, and that's where I want to go.
Right.
I want to finish all 7 books.
Yeah.
I can completely understand, however, the mentality of an author who thinks, well, I'm going to kill them off because that means there can be no non-author written sequels, as they call them. So it will end with me, and after I'm dead and gone, they won't be able to bring back the character and write a load of...
That never struck me before. I just thought it would free you of
Well,
him.
I mean, Agatha Christie did that with Poirot, didn't she?
That's
she
true.
wanted to she wanted to finish him off herself.
So you say you can completely understand it, but you're not going to commit yourself as to whether...
Well, no, I'm not going to commit myself, because
not.
I don't want the hate mail apart from anything else.
Absolutely. When you started off, I mean, when you first thought about Harry, what came first? Was it the idea of the magic, or the character Harry, or the boarding school? I mean, were you a big, keen reader of boarding school stories? When
I read a few when I was younger.
Angela Brazil and all that kind of stuff.
I never read Angela Brazil. I read some Mallory Towers, and they really don't bear rereading, do they? But when I was 6, so I really like them. But I think Harry and magic came together.
Yeah.
So the essential idea was a boy who was a wizard without knowing he was a wizard. That was it. That was the premise.
Yeah.
And then I worked backwards from there. How could he not know? And so that's how all the backstory came. And there's a lot of backstory, as you know.
Yeah.
And in fact, now I'm in book 7, and I realise just how much backstory there is, because there's still a lot to explain and a lot to find out.
You must have had to invent the backstory further down the line. You couldn't possibly have started with this massive hinterland.
No,
I mean,
of course I didn't. I mean, I didn't know. You could... No way. I mean, I don't know how many characters I've got in play, but I've got a lot of 200 or something ridiculous.
But did you ever think, as you were writing the subsequent books, as you wanted, oh, why did I write that in book 2? That screwed me. I can't write such and such now.
Yeah, never. I don't think I've ever done that on a really major plot point.
Right.
But certainly a couple of times I have hit a snag, and I thought, well, I boxed myself in. If only I'd left something open earlier, then there would have been an easier way to wriggle through that hole, and
Like
I've always
chess.
found a way.
Extraordinary.
Well, it is, because it is a complicated plot, and the resolution is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, keeping it all in your
But
mind.
is the last book
Complex.
finished now? I mean, Judy said it's in your safe. I know the last chapter.
No, the last book's not finished.
So
I'm well into it now.
But you've written the
but I wrote-
finale already. You're
I
building
wrote the
towards
final
that.
chapter in something like 1990. No, hang on. I wrote the final chapter in something like 1990. Which is
Really?
ridiculous, yeah.
So you knew exactly how the series was
Well,
going to
pretty
end?
much, yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. That was a really... I mean, I've been lambasted for that by a couple of people. I think they thought it was very arrogant of me to write the ending of my 7-book series when I didn't have a publisher and no one had ever heard of me. But I mean, when you've got absolutely nothing, you can plan whatever you like,
Exactly,
can't you?
yeah.
Who cares?
Absolutely. And the other thing is, before we ask about how you sort of started writing on it, the other thing that struck all of us, including our son, who is a mega fan, was when the book started to get darker, the whole evil, good thing started to get much stronger. And I think that was, well, it was a bit darker with the mudbloods in the second book.
Yeah.
But in The Prisoner of Azkaban, that's when it got really heavy,
With the
wasn't it? With the
Dementors,
Dementors and
yeah.
all of that. And was that something you intended all along, or did it just develop?
I did intend it all along, because as Harry grows up, these parallel things are happening, aren't they? Harry's getting older and older and more skilled, and simultaneously Voldemort's getting more and more powerful, and he's returning to physical form, because of course in the first book he's not even a physical entity, really.
No.
But I've always said, when people have said that to me, and I agree that the books have got a lot darker,
Yeah.
the imagery in the first book where Voldemort appears in the back of Quirrell's head,
Yeah.
I still think is one of the creepiest things I've ever written.
Yeah.
I
It
really
is.
do.
It is.
And also the image of the cloaked figure drinking the unicorn blood, this
Yes.
thing slithering across the ground,
Oh,
which
yeah.
they did very well in the film,
Yeah.
Philosopher's Stone. I think those are very macabre images. So I don't think that you could say that from the first book I wasn't setting out my stall, really. I was saying this is a world where some pretty nasty things can happen.
Yeah, I know that, but what I'm saying is what I started to see parallels with things like racism and
Yes,
apartheid
definitely.
and
Well,
genocide and all that
absolutely.
kind
That was
of
very
stuff.
conscious, that Harry entered this world that a lot of us would fantasise would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I've got a magic wand and everything will be fabulous. And
Yeah.
the point being, human nature is human nature, whatever special powers and talents you have. So he walks through, well, you could say through the looking glass, couldn't you? He walks into this amazing world, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
And he immediately encounters all the problems you'd think he'd left behind, but they're in an even more extravagant form, because everything's exacerbated by magic.
You can run, but you can't hide, as they used to
Definitely,
say.
yes. Yeah.
You've talked about having a game plan of 7 books from the word go before you even had a publisher, and you must have been doing backhand springs of delight when the Philosopher's Stone got published.
I
I
was.
mean, any author to have their first book.
Unbelievable
Yeah, I
moment,
mean,
yeah.
what pleasure and optimism and
You
suffused
could
with
pretty
glory.
much say nothing since has come close.
bet-
actually, but
yeah.
that's testimony to what a moment of euphoria that was.
Yes. Well, when did the euphoria change to something
To terror.
Well, no, maybe it was terror, but when did you, at what point in the books did you think, hold on, this isn't just a bestseller, this isn't just quite a nice series which I'm enjoying and the readers are enjoying, this is unprecedented. I mean, it's been said that if you put all the books that have been bought that you've written about Harry Potter end to end, they go around the world, around the equator, nearly 1.5 times, and we ain't finished yet. When did you wake up and think, this is historic? Because it is historic. I mean, you will go down in publishing history for probably the next 3 centuries.
I honestly don't think of it in those terms, although I'd say for the first 3 books, I was in real denial I really lived in denial for a
the
long
fame?
time. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's where my reputation for being somewhat
The recluse.
po-faced came from, because I was like a rabbit caught in headlights. And the only way I could cope was it's not really that big a deal, you know. And then but things keep on happening, and journalists start doorstepping you, and you know, you pick up a paper and there are casual references to Harry Potter. That's the freakiest thing, is that it permeates
Becomes
odd
part of the
stories, and it
Yes.
becomes. That's more of an indication to me how big it's become than anything else. I remember there was a phase where I didn't buy the papers because it was becoming a bit strange to me, and I devour newspapers. And then it was Wimbledon, this is a few years back, and I thought, it's safe to read Wimbledon, stop being so, you know, get over yourself. So I picked up this paper and I turned to this account of this match with Venus Williams, and they said, and I just saw Harry Potter staring up at me, and they were talking about bludgers, you know, the balls in Quidditch. And they were saying, because her serve was so powerful, it was being compared to a bludger, with not much explanation. So there again, you know, but that was very cool. I mean, things like that are wonderful.
That's the fame thing, and that's entering kind of the lexicon of sort of ordinary sort of dialogue between people and stuff, and what they call water cooler conversation. And that's not just to do with reading the latest book. It's a continuous thing with you now. What about the wealth? And I don't want to be prurient about that, because it's just what it is. But you are unbelievably wealthy, beyond the dreams of avarice, really. I mean, how's that changed life for you?
Well, it's great.
Thank you for saying
frankly. And it's, if you, I mean, not to crack out the violins or anything, but if you have been through a few years where things have been very tough, and they were very tough, and it's not so much romanticised, but it's dismissed in half a sentence, oh, starving in a garret. And occasionally I thought, well, you try it, pal. You go there and you see. It wasn't a publicity stunt, it was my life. And and at that time I didn't know there was going to be this amazing resolution. I thought this would be life for 20 years.
But did you ever feel guilty about the amount of money you won? Because
yeah, I did. I absolutely did. There came a point where, because initially, I have to say that initially people were reporting, and they still do frequently report, much more than I've got. I mean, I'm not pretending I'm not hugely wealthy, because I am. But sometimes they print figures that certainly my accountant wouldn't recognise. But in the early days, they were saying I was a millionaire, and I was nowhere near a millionaire. And so that's weird and mind-warping when you're used to counting every penny.
70 quid a week you were on before you got rich.
So what was happening to you was that basically there were you, just the same as you'd ever been, writing this book that you've been thinking about and writing for ages, and suddenly it took off, just this one book, and then the next book, and then suddenly you kind of, what you did, you suddenly realised that this person, actually had taken on a life of her own. Which wasn't you at all, and you were completely.
I think that's completely accurate, and I think that you sit there thinking, but I'm still the same idiot I was yesterday, and suddenly people are interested in what I've got to say, and my response to that, I think, was to clam up quite a lot, because I did feel, like I said, I felt suddenly this light had been shone on me underneath my stone, and I found it was a time of real turmoil when I first became subjected to that kind of scrutiny, because I felt a loyalty to the person I'd been yesterday, and I didn't want to say, oh, it was dreadful, because it really hadn't been dreadful. You know, we'd been doing okay, and I'd been teaching, and my daughter would still say, I mean, said to me yesterday, in fact, you know, we were happy. So I didn't want to sit there and say, oh, it's all dreadful, and now it's fabulous, darling, because I've got a bit of money.
And is your daughter, I mean, your two new ones are still too little, but Jessica, who's been with you there right from the beginning, really, and has she adapted to it okay? I mean,
she's been phenomenal, and it hasn't always been easy for her, because, well, you can imagine, your mother being J.K. Rowling, she's... But also, at one point, I remember her being pretty, metaphorically speaking, up against the school railings. Tell us what the title of the next book is. It's not terribly
up against
easy.
The school railings,
by other children. You know, trying to get titles out of her and things. But she was amazing. She was very cool.
And what about? It's not so much to do with the wealth. Well, it might have been actually, but certainly the fame thing. Before you met your lovely husband, you're incredibly.
He's a lovely husband.
Yeah. No, I've seen pictures of rock star looks with him. Before that, the dating. Between the relationship which led to your lovely daughter and him, there was this period where you found this immense wealth and success, and you said that dating was really tricky, really hard. Was that because you expected guys to be coming on to you because of who you were?
Well, it wasn't so much that. To be perfectly honest with you, dating is just tricky if you're a single mother. That's it. And the other business was a vaguely complicating factor. But by the time you've got a babysitter, it is, the reality of life was. And I mean, I didn't have a nanny for quite a long time. I didn't have properly organised childcare, because I think I was just, again, I was in denial about it, that I needed it. And then there came a point where I clearly needed it. I couldn't cover all my professional obligations, even though I was trying to keep them minimal.
I can cope, I can handle
I
this.
did, which is very much in my personality, to pretend I can cope with things and not ask for help until I've cracked up a bit.
Looking at where you are now, I mean, personally as well as career-wise, professionally and all the rest of it, you're in a very good place, touch wood. I mean, if there is any wood around here to touch, but you're very happy. You've got a lovely family. And
I'm really lucky, and I think that every day. I swear, every day I think how lucky I am.
That's great.
Just looking at the constant theme, we're going to take a break in a couple of minutes, but then you're back, and we've got some children here with questions. But before they arrive, so, as you've said yourself, the theme really of the books is death, isn't it?
Yes, largely.
Yeah, largely. It's a hugely powerful theme. And you were writing the first one when your mother died at 45, and you were very close to her. Had you envisaged that death would be such a powerful theme before her death, or did it inform that sense of loss?
Definitely informed it.
Yeah.
In the first draft, I'd only been writing Harry for 6 months before she died. And in the first draft, I really finished off his parents in quite a flippant way. And then Mum died. And I just couldn't. I couldn't finish off his parents in that flippant way. I couldn't. Not now, knowing what it felt like to lose a parent.
So that's why Harry's parents maintained this presence.
They do maintain
in the photographs.
And in the mirror, of course.
And in the mirror, yeah.
And when you wrote that, I wouldn't be surprised if you were to say that you perhaps shed a few tears when you wrote those sequences, when Harry sits in front of the mirror, lost.
That's my favourite chapter in the first book.
It's a lovely chapter. It's a lovely chapter.
It's one of my favourite chapters in the whole series.
Yeah. That's what's so reassuring about the books, because they are, I mean, you know, they do deal with straightforward evil and death. You always seem to leave a thread somewhere, even though they're inside. I mean, I love all the headmasters, the past headmasters and teachers in their little frames. Well, I tell you what, just to end kind of this particular section, but I always loved that. What was his name? What was the one who was always putting his hair in curlers? The professor.
Gilderoy.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I love that, the idea of him, you know, in the evenings, sitting in this thing, taking his curlers out and putting them in and everything. So there's a great deal of humour in the book as well, and presumably that's just part of your character. I mean, that's how you always...
I think so, though you wouldn't always imagine it the way I'm described, would you? The old curmudgeon. But yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as you say, the last chapter is in the safe. You're tidying up the rest of the manuscript, but this is the last of the books. That's it. That's 7.
Well, I've always said that I might do a kind of encyclopedia of the world for charity.
Okay.
Just to round it off.
But that's not the same as the creative.
No, absolutely not. No, it's not the same as a story.
Can you live without Harry?
Well, I'm going to have to learn. It's going to be tough.
Why not extend it to 9 then? I mean, seriously, why stick to the 7? I mean, is it just too much to ask?
Because I think that you've got to go out when you've
done it.
Yeah, you have. I admire the people who go out when people still want more. You know, and that's what I want to do.
But I'm also told, well, actually, I read this in Tatler. Maybe it was an unguarded comment you made, that you've already completed another children's book for younger children.
Oh yeah, it's not completed, but it's pretty far on. It's about halfway.
And how long has that been in your mind for?
Not nearly as long as Harry. A few years.
And are you happy with it?
Yeah, I really like it. It's for younger children. It's a kind of a fairy tale. It's a much smaller book.
Oh, right.
So that would probably be a nice thing to go to after Harry, not another huge tome.
And is that the future then? I mean, can you envisage yourself picking up another huge idea like Harry Potter and running it over?
Yeah, if I liked the idea enough, I definitely would. But I don't think that I don't think I'm ever going to have anything like Harry again. I think you just get one like Harry.
Well, I mean, I think most people will be hoping that at some point in your life that you will come back to him in some way, shape or form. There will be something, because you'll have
Harry Potter's midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Should he survive to see one?
Right, we'll take a break here, but after you say we pay, and the lines for that are about to close, by the way, we're back with Jo, and this time a group of kids get to ask her the questions that they want. We'll see you shortly. Thanks, Jo.
Professor Rudy! Is that a threat?
And kids are here, Jo's here. Just before we get to you lot, I mean, it is true about Hogwarts, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, it's terrifying. How do they get away with it?
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, yes, Draco. Draco, the guy who plays Draco Malfoy is much fancied by
everyone.
By everyone.
Yes.
Do any of the girls here fancy Draco in the films?
Not after
do you?
Cedric,
I'm not going
surely.
You're not going to tell me, are you?
I can't do you a favour.
OK,
right. Where's Luke sitting? Luke, how old are you, Luke?
8.
8. Have you read all the books?
Not really, no.
Not all of them.
Don't know who Harry
That's a
Potter
good start,
is.
isn't it, Jo?
You've got a good question for Jo, though. So what is it, Luke?
If you were a character in your books, who would you be?
Probably Hermione, because she was loosely based on me when I was younger. I was quite annoying like that.
What,
So-
brainy? Were you
Well,
very
I
much a
was-
bookie?
Yeah,
A bookie schoolgirl?
I was
Yeah.
that, and you know that sort of annoying person who underneath is very insecure. Well, Hermione is a combination, I think, of my sister and me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were you were the one who'd kind of put people in their place with quotations and things that you'd learned.
Well, I don't know that I'd go that far, but I was swotty. I was swotty.
And she decked them with a left hook.
No, she was more the house elf thing. She was a bit more political, a bit more hysterical about.
Were you head girl, or were you not
I was head girl,
You were
but
head
that
girl?
meant being voted least likely to go to Borstal if you went to my school. That wasn't a massive accolade, to be perfectly
Very
frank.
funny.
Sorry,
Okay.
school, if you're watching.
Oh yeah,
Now, your
sorry.
favourite character is Luke.
Harry Potter.
Definitely Harry, is
That's
it?
interesting because not a lot of people like Harry best.
Really?
No, in fact,
Really?
it's a tiny percentage. I remember seeing a poll on one of the unofficial fan sites. Something like 2% of people liked Harry best.
Oh, I love Harry.
Yeah, Ron's much more popular.
OK,
Well-
where's Ella sitting? There. Ella, how old are you, please?
I'm 13.
OK, I'm not going to ask you if you've read every single book, but I'm told you have. You want to ask about a boggart?
Yes.
Just remind us of what a boggart is.
You like say spell to a sort of a cupboard, and then what you most fear comes out.
Right.
Right, so in my case it might be a sort of a huge spider.
Yeah.
Or in Judy's case it might be me. Yeah, OK, fine. A boggart. So what's
So
the
what do you want
question?
to ask Joe?
So I was just wondering, if you stood in front of a boggart, what would you see?
I'd see what Mrs. Weasley sees in Order of the Phoenix. She sees her. This is a bit awful, but she sees her children dead.
Oh, my God.
I know, it's a bit disturbing.
You are dark, aren't you?
Sorry. Well, I mean, I think for any mother, probably that's the worst thing you could possibly imagine, and that's what she sees as the war is starting, and she knows her sons are going to be involved.
Right.
That's
And
what she worries about.
And I've forgotten, how do you counter a boggart? What's the counter spell?
You have to learn to laugh at it. Quite hard to laugh at that one, though, and in fact, she can't. Someone else saves her from it. She can't banish that image.
you like Hagrid best, don't you?
Yes,
I love Hagrid.
Yeah, Hagrid's got a huge fan base.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonder if Hagrid's for the chop. Shame, innit? She won't tell us, so there's no point in asking. Who else have we got? We've got George. George Lynch? Yeah, that's you, isn't it? George L there. Hi. And what do you want to ask Joe, George?
My question is, are any of the characters based on people you know?
Well, I did mistakenly say that Lockhart was based on someone I had known.
Oh, really?
Yes, and that got rather an annoying lot of newspaper space because they thought it was the wrong person. They went after the wrong person.
He's the very vain one that we were talking about before.
Yes, and I barely exaggerated, believe it or not. But someone I knew quite a long time ago.
Was he in television?
No, well, there are a lot of Lockharts knocking around out there in
Lockhart's in
television.
TV.
I love
Yeah,
him.
so that was the only time I sat down and unconsciously thought, I'm putting X in as a character, and I did.
And did you like X?
No, I absolutely loathed X, as I think probably comes
Oh, yeah,
across
yeah.
by making Gilderoy Lockhart.
Do you think X knows?
No, I think X's egotism is such that X is probably wandering around saying, we were like that, she adored me. She wanted to marry me, I turned her down. Believe you me.
You know, Carly Simon had a very private dinner for charity with the person who nominated the most, and she told them who was the character of You're So Vain, her first hit song, right?
Right.
You should do the same thing in a few years. you should say, I'll tell you
Well,
who...
I don't want to ruin X's life.
No,
Oh,
no.
It sounds a complete...
I know, but I still don't want to ruin that person's life.
All right, OK, that was a great question, George, which got us a great answer.
He's a Ron Weasley fan, aren't
Who's
you?
next? Is it
Yeah,
Sean?
Ron.
Sean?
Kian.
Kian, I'm so sorry,
Kian.
Kian. I do beg your pardon. How old are you, Kian?
10.
OK, what's your question for Jen?
After Harry Potter, what are you going to write next?
Well, I kind of answered that before the break. I think I will finish another book for children, but younger, slightly younger children that I've got knocking around. So
It's a shorter
I quite
book, you
like
said.
that. Much
Yeah.
shorter, yes.
And will you be really sorry when the last book comes out of Harry? You
I will
followed him.
too. I will. I'm going to really, really miss it.
Yeah. And Ellie? Not Ella, but Ellie. Hello, Ellie. You're 13, aren't you?
Yeah.
OK, what did you want to ask Joe?
Who did you write Harry Potter for? Was there someone special that inspired you? Or
Good question.
It is. I wish I could say something lovely in response, but it was really me. It was just something that I really wanted to write. When I had the idea, I thought that would be such fun to write, and it has been.
Did the idea just fall out of a clear blue sky? Or
It
did
really
you wake,
did.
Really? What? Did you wake up at 3 in the morning with it in
No,
your
I
head or what?
was on the train, Manchester to London, and it just came.
Just fully formed?
Pretty formed,
Yeah, it's,
you know, I mean,
future
not the
state.
whole...
Yeah, of course not.
But, yeah, the essential idea came, and then we were delayed, and I just kept adding bits in my mind, and by the time I got off the train, I had a lot there.
Yeah.
I really had a lot.
I love the puns are great, like Diagon Alley. Don't you love that Diagon Alley?
I like that.
Yeah, it's great.
And hang on,
Juliet.
just one more quick question on that. Oh, damn, it's out of my head now. Go to Juliet and I'll think it back.
Okay, Juliet.
Have you always wanted to be an author?
Always, since literally as soon as I realised that books didn't just, you know, pop up out of nowhere, that people made the stories. I've always wanted to do it. I can remember being extremely young and copying words without knowing what the words meant. So I think it's just innate.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do it.
You loved words, yeah.
I know what the question... Sorry, Julie.
You wrote when you were about 5 or 6 and you used to write little tales.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I know what the question was. You obviously, because of the penury that you lived in that initial period, you were writing, we know, famously in cafes to keep warm and while the baby was asleep in the pushchair and stuff. You still write in cafes? You find your muse still?
I won't be saying where I go.
No, I wouldn't ask you
enough,
that. No, but you do.
no.
What,
Yeah.
just to get the buzz, the vibe that you found
I
then?
think it's habit. It's now so deeply ingrained. I write best.
Okay.
Fascinating.
We have who hasn't asked a question? Aaron, Nathan and George. So, okay, Aaron, very quickly, what's yours?
Was it hard to think up the rules of Quidditch?
I did it all in about half an hour after a row with my then boyfriend. And I think that's where the bludgers came from.
Okay, and Nathan?
What inspired you to make such creative animals?
Well, some of the animals I make up, like the blast-ended scroots, are all mine. But many of them exist in folklore and mythology, and I've twisted them a bit to suit my own ends. There's not a lot on hippogriffs if you go looking, but I just created my own hippogriff.
And George, you're the only one left, but tell us your favourite character.
My favourite character is Hermione.
Hermione?
No,
Yeah,
you
I
are the
love
first
Hermione.
boy I've ever met whose favourite character was Hermione.
Really?
Really?
But did you like her before Emma Watson started playing her? No,
You fancy Emma
in
Watson?
fact, you like Emma Watson. A lot of people
I don't
do.
take it.
Go.
Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is now out in paperback. We're so glad you came on. Thanks a lot for doing
you
that,
so
Joe. It's been a
much.
pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow,
Thank
guys.
very
Bye.
much. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thanks, kids.